And hello, America. Hello, world. This is Jake Baker. You're listening to the Baker Report. As we look around, we see a new beginning, but the scenery hasn't really changed much from last year. Our economy is still in a mess with real inflation around 20%. More than 180 banks are now on the red list here in the U.S. Our supply chain is in absolute shambles. Our foreign policy is a joke, and our kangaroo courts are disallowing, jailing, or destroying anything that has its roots in America, the America that many of us grew up in. Sadly, now, if it's conservative, godly, decent, or moral, it's under attack by the vicious, hate-filled left. And now, I see a confrontation within the church brewing between those who would take a vocal, polemic position on the issues of the day, such as homosexuality, the trans movement, drugs in society, homeless people defecating on the sidewalks, open borders, drug cartels, abortion, pornography, and the utter destruction of society, and those who believe that the church should remain cloistered within the four walls of their building. But Ecclesiastes 3 reminds us that there are seasons, but that the seasons change. Listen to this. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace. There are seasons, folks, and in my life, I have seen many of these seasons come and go. I've seen the season of love and goodwill in the Jesus movement. I've seen a time of love, and I've seen a time of hate during the days of the conservative liberal conflict. I've seen a time when we sing love songs in the church, and a time when the prosperity movement told us we needed to trust Yahweh for this or that or some earthly thing. But the seasons are changing. There's no longer a time of peace and gathering in. No longer a time of love songs and a soft church. This is the time of the end. The seasons have changed. This is the time when we gear up, when we ready ourselves for battle, a time when we put on the whole armor of God and prepare for the war that is to come. We have passed the time of love and peace. We are entering the time, unfortunately, of hatred and warfare. Because know this, the American left, the globalist left, hates you and everything you stand for. But wait, you say, I thought we were supposed to love everyone and be at peace with all men. So what is this about hate and war? Folks, this is a time of darkness and light. We're in a war. The other side is fighting, while way too many of us are sitting it out on the sidelines, completely oblivious to the fact that we're at war. You, ladies and gentlemen, are no longer in the reserves. This is the time that we forget about Christmas and Easter Christians or weekend warriors. It's over. This is the time of battle and revival. This is the time of glorious spiritual shock and awe. It's time to pick up the shield of faith, batten down the helmet of salvation, and dip the sword of the Spirit in the blood of Calvary. There is no question that we will be engaged by the enemy. They hate our faith. They hate our God. The question is, will you fight or will you go down with a sobbing whimper? You will be in a war no matter what. And one of the biggest battles we are facing is the battle with global Islam. Islam is moving like a cancer across the world. It's sweeping through the body politic. It's an all-consuming fire that thrives on hate and force. Islam is always spread at the end of a spear or the barrel of a gun. But here's the good news. Islam is an empty shell. It's a dark fairy tale religion that has no substance and is a poor forgery of Christianity, shaped cleverly by that old dragon who has sent it forth to kill and destroy. But Islam cannot stand in the light of the gospel and is exposed by their own writings, by history, and by their clumsy attempts to create their own prophets to mimic the true prophets of God. It creates a false theology because they needed one. So, over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be sharing our discussion with Dr. Jay Smith, who cut his teeth on debating the scholars and theologians of the dark religion of Islam. When this is done, you'll not only understand Islam, you will see that despite its haunting, even frightening specter, it is an empty house with nothing but lies, false prophets, and deception. Our guest today has his doctorate in polemics, and his area of study is Islam and the dismantling of the illusion of a great global religion. He is a gifted scholar, teacher, college professor, and most importantly, a tireless warrior in the epic battle of light and darkness. From this day on, you will understand Islam and how to defeat it as never before. This is the time of a great spiritual awakening, and I can thank our guest today, Dr. Jay Smith, for all that he has done, and we are grateful for his courage and his vision. Now, we'll be back with all of that and a whole lot more right after this short time out. So stay tuned for debunking the myth of Islam.
You finally took the plunge and started that video blog, or podcast. And it looks great. So you go down the checklist. 1. You talk about lots of important stuff. 2. The set looks incredible. 3. You are already lining up amazing guests. 4. Wait, what's 4 again? Oh right, you need viewers. You know, people to actually watch the videos you're uploading. Those people that make it possible to monetize your podcast or video, or bring in customers. So, how do you get viewers? Well, you can hire some big ad agency, but to them, you are still just a small client. You can call every member of your family, and their families, or you can contact Elite Power Pros. We'll tailor a custom plan that meets your needs, finds your audience, and keeps your budget in mind during the whole process. Visit us today at ElitePowerPros.com. That's ElitePowerPros.com.
Several months ago, my wife of about 40 years, Katie, became desperately ill. She was bedfast, could barely speak, and even breathing was exhausting. We saw specialist after specialist who had no idea what was wrong, and the best they could do was give her drugs from Big Pharma, probably made in China, so she could die more comfortably. But I didn't want surrender. I wanted to bring shock and awe to whatever this was, and by the grace of God, I was led to Dr. Houck, affectionately known as Pappy. He put her on an all-natural formula that he developed over 30 years that declared war on disease, toxins, viruses, bacteria, heavy metals, and parasites, which I'm told are the root of about 90% of all illnesses, including liver, kidney, lung, and heart problems, as well as dementia. Well, within a couple of weeks, she was up and about, and within about a month, she was back to normal and asking me to take out the garbage. That's when I knew I had to bring this formula to everyone who wanted preemptive wellness and to those who were desperate to find their road back to wellness again. So I created Sanus One for the Wellness and Bio Cleanse formula. Obviously, no medicine can heal you, but our Wellness and Bio Cleanse formula attacks all those things that are crippling your immune system. It's designed to clear them out, and that allows your immune system to do what it was designed to do: heal your body. I am 100% convinced that this works. It gave me my Katie back. I'm looking forward to discovering whatever is in the path ahead of us with Katie by my side for years to come. So, today, right now, you need to protect your wellness or find the road back to wellness with our one-of-a-kind Sanus One Wellness and Bio Cleanse formula. You cannot get this unique, bio-sized formula anywhere else in the world. Visit our website at sanus1.com. That's sanus1.com.
For years, I listened to the Baker Report. It was cutting edge, and his rants, priceless. Now he's back and just as outspoken, and even more penetrating on the confluence of history, headlines, and prophecy. Check right here every Friday for the latest release of the Baker Report. Here's what some of his viewers had to say.
Wow, I'd forgotten how much I missed the Baker Report. Just hearing that voice made me happy.
Classic Baker Report. Fabulous. Just fabulous.
Jake gets it. It's headlines, history. It's about the unfolding of prophecy. The perfect way to end the week and start the Sabbath. Love it.
Join Dr. Jake Baker every Friday afternoon for the Baker Report. And don't forget to hit the like button. Then subscribe and tell a few hundred of your closest friends that the Baker Report is back every Friday afternoon on Rumble.
And we are back for page 2 of the Baker Report. Glad that you're with us. We have, as I told you, a special guest today, Dr. Jay Smith, who is not just brilliant, but courageous, because he has taken on Islam around the world, from India to London to America and beyond. Jay, welcome to the program. Good to have you with us.
Thanks, Jake. Good to be here finally.
We look at the world today, Jay, and there are really two major religions. And I realize there's others besides that, but there are two major religious forces in the world today: Christianity and Islam. Islam on the rise, Christianity is sadly on the decline in many parts of the world, and here in America as well. But taking on Islam, quite an undertaking, quite a task to even think about, delving into the number one, the theology of Islam, but just the mere fact that you challenge them can be both intellectually challenging and perhaps even physically challenging at times.
Yeah, and there's a reason why, Jake, that I'm taking on Islam. I'm a polemicist. Do you know what that word means?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay.
We sat around and argued about it for hours one day.
Okay. Well, polemics goes on the offense, apologetics on the defense. I'm a polemicist, so I go on the offense. That's what my doctorate's in. I think I'm the only one in the world that has a doctorate in the polemics of Islam. And it is the reason why is exactly what you're stating, and that is that the idea of confronting Islam is not very healthy at the moment. It hasn't been probably for the last 1,400 years. And that's why we have so few of us who are doing what we're doing, what I'm doing. And there are a few others, but you can almost number them on two hands. And that is the problem. It is a religion that does not take kindly to criticism. And yet it does very much criticize itself. It's very much of a polemical religion. And the reason why is from this book right here. You just open up the Quran. This is their holy book. And you will see it is full of polemics. Polemics against the Christians, against the Jews, against the pagans. Anybody that is not Islamic, it is against. So you can see if this is their litmus, if this is their dictums, this is their foundation, it would stand to reason that they would follow exactly what it says. And they are, and they're doing a good job at it. The reason I got into it, and the reason why I have been involved for over 40 years now, is because of where I lived, where I was born. I was born in northern India, which is now the second largest Muslim country on earth. Hard to understand that because we think of India being Hindu. 800 million Hindus, 220 million Muslims. That's the number that is now, which means it surpassed Pakistan, which used to be number 2. It is now number 2. Pakistan, right on our west coast, is number 3, and then Bangladesh on the east coast or the east side would be number 4. Number 1, of course, is Indonesia. But Indonesia, it has a veneer of Islam. It's not very deep, and you don't hear of many Indonesians who are going on the warpath. I don't know of any Indonesian debater. I don't know of one that's world renowned, that's up there confronting Christianity. Almost all the debaters, in fact, every one of the debaters, Islamic debaters that's confronting Christianity, is from what we call the Indian subcontinent: Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, those three countries. You can just name the names and you can see what I'm talking about. The big names like Anand Rashid, or he is from Pakistan, or Mansur Ahmad, he is from Bangladesh, or Zakir Naik, he is from India, or Shabir Ali, again from India, Ahmad Didat from India. These are big names, and these are the ones that are all over the internet, and these are the ones that are confronting Christianity at its foundations, and with great polemics, terrific polemics. So I've grown up in that environment. I've had Muslim roommates, I've had Muslim classmates, I have engaged at this from a very young age. I was fed up with it, wanted to leave it, wanted nothing to do with it when I left India in 1971 as a 17-year-old. And I was glad to leave India, and not India itself, but that environment. I did not like the Muslims, their aggressiveness. I did not like their passion for their religion. I thought it was offsetting. I thought it was off-putting. I felt that they were wrong, but I really didn't know how to confront their wrongness. I didn't know how to do that. There was no book, there was nothing for me to go to, and I was glad to leave it. Came back to the States to do my undergraduate, anything but Islam. And then I did my postgraduate. I was into apologetics, so I did my Master Divinity in Apologetics. And it was while I was doing my Master Divinity in Apologetics, I had married my wife. That was 42 years ago. We went to a one-day seminar, just a day seminar on Islam over at another seminary. I was in Philadelphia at the time, and we went to Westminster Seminary. Guy named Harvey Kahn, Dr. Harvey Kahn, who is from Korea. So he knew very little about Islam, yet he was doing this seminar on Islam. And you could see why. No one was really engaging with Islam back then in the 1970s. And so he was saying that there were maybe 1,500 missionaries working amongst these 800 million Muslims this is 1981, not 1970. This is 1981 when I went to the seminar. Now think that through. 800 million Muslims, Jake. That's too big a number to compute. How can you compute a number like that? But 1,500, that you can compute. And that 1,500 number of missionaries made up only 2% of all missionaries. What are those balloons doing? Do you see the balloons?
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess maybe my computer, when I say something like that, it has balloons go up.
I saw.
Don't know why that happened. It's my computer rejoicing with me, I guess. But that's nothing to rejoice about. 2%? And I remember turning to my wife and I said, what in the world are we doing wrong? Here is the fastest growing religion on earth, the religion that is attacking us at our foundations more than any other. And we're only sending 2%, 1,500. That's it. So we went to our mission office. I'm a Mish kid. My wife is a Mish kid. We're both missionary kids. She grew up in Kenya. I grew up in India. From missionary families. I'm third generation missionary. My grandparents are missionaries as well. And so we went to our mission office and we said, listen, send us to the mission field. And they said, we don't have any mission work with Muslims, which was symptomatic of the problem right there. Nobody wanted to work with Muslims from what you're saying. You can see why. And so it was this need to get into the Muslim world that really was the impetus because of the shallow numbers. And we've been doing it ever since. So that's 40 years. They sent us to Senegal to begin with because no one else wanted to go to Senegal. You have to learn 2 languages. You have to learn French and Wolof. And being Americans don't like to learn languages. Well, Judy and I had grown up overseas. We were used to learning new languages. So we learned French in Paris, and then we headed off to Senegal and learned Wolof there and spent 5 years there starting the first Wolof-speaking church there in the city of Thiès. But it was not the Islam that I had studied at Fuller Seminary when I got my master's degree. Because once we realized we were going to the Muslim world, I needed some Muslim training. So I went to Fuller, studied under Dr. Woodbury and Dudley Woodbury. I don't know if you know that name, but he is one of the grandfathers of the Islamic work in the Christian world here in the United States and across the world. So he was my professor. And he had trained me up in Orthodox Islam. What I was seeing in Senegal was a Sufi form of Islam, these brotherhoods, not at all Orthodox, and nothing that I was used to or wanted to get involved with or engaged with. And so it was after about 5 years, we'd started the church there, and we were getting word that there was a real problem in the city of London in England, and that there was a huge radical element in London, in England, and that the missionaries there who were knocking on the different doors did not know how to engage with this much more radical Islam. Well, radical Islam, let me just define terms, Jake. Radical Islam means root. The word radical means root, like radical number, root. Radical Islam is going back to the root. Now, that I can deal with, and that I could understand, and that I grew up with, having grown up in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Because 70% of all of these Muslims that were in Britain are from those three countries because of the colonial experience. They're part of the empire. They're part of the Commonwealth, as they call it. So I said, send us to London. We'll take these guys and gals on. And I remember to get into England, you have, as a missionary, it takes about 1.5 years to get a visa, as a missionary visa. It's very difficult. They don't want you there as missionaries in England at all for obvious reasons. And I remember going to the New York embassy or the office there in the consulate. And the first question the guy who was interviewing us asked us is, why should we allow you to come to England? What is it you can offer us? And I said, you got a problem. You've got a real strong radicalizing Muslim that's growing and growing, especially in London, and that you have no idea how to deal with. You don't know where they come from. You know where they physically come from, but you don't know where their mentality is. You don't understand the religion. You don't understand who they are, what they're doing, what their agenda is. And I do. This is my area of expertise. I grew up amongst them. I know them. I understand them, and I know how to confront them. He looked at his watch, and he said, if you got 45 minutes, I'll give you a visa before we left. And so we walked out of the consulate with our visas, my wife, my son, and I. Which is unheard of. But that man realized that there was a real problem. He knew that in his country, there was a real problem with this radical Islam. So we
now,
took
Jay, what year was that?
That's 1992.
1992.
So we arrived in September of 1992 in London.
So the problem in England is by no means new. It's been something growing for a very long time that everybody, frankly, just ignored.
Yeah, and the problem in England is it's an Islam that's been over there, now it's over here.
Right.
That's the problem. And England is unique in Europe. It's the only European country that has no restrictions against Islam at all. There's none. Every other European country either shuts down the minarets, or like in France, they won't let them wear the hijab in public. You name it, there are restriction after restriction in every European country except England. England has no restrictions. They pretty much bend over backwards to placate the Muslims. And the Muslims are growing exponentially. 10 of our mayors in 10 different cities are now Muslim in Britain, including London.
Including London. Right.
So you can see that this is a problem. We now have minarets. We have minarets everywhere. We now have Islamic law. Sharia law that is considered to be part of British law, that's subservient to British law as of 1997. I think they started, or maybe it was 2007. I can't remember the exact date. They now allowed Islamic courts to be legitimate and that they are underneath British law. So we have two different laws now in Britain. One is British law, and the other is Islamic law. So this is the only European country, the only Western country that has allowed Islamic courts. And there are about 90 of them in the last count. I'm sure there'll be over 100 soon. But it is the only country that pretty much allows anybody, if you are in any city, like let's just say London, where we were for 25 years, and you are a Muslim that's in a prison or in a hospital or in a school, and you see that there is meat on the table and it's not halal meat, you can refuse it. And as a result, they will start bringing in halal meat immediately. But why have two different sources for meat? They then have all the meat is halal. So that today now, if you go to any hospital or any school or any prison in Britain, let's say in London, I can't say for all of Britain, for anywhere in London, all the schools, hospitals, and prisons only serve halal meat.
Now that is real power.
It's huge power. It's enormous power. And that's why, England, Britain has bent over backwards to placate Muslims. Now, look how the Muslims have responded. Notice, we're the only country in Europe that's had bombers come and kill 52 of us on July 7th, 2005. We've had attack after attack. We've had more attacks than any other European country. Remember, I could just name them off, list them off. The attack across Westminster Bridge when the guy drove his car and killed 5 people and then got out and stabbed a police officer to death. I mean, there's this attack after attack after attack. The fellow that went and blew himself up in that Ariana concert. I can't remember how many people he killed. I mean, there have been so many attacks. The bombings there in the marketplace along the Thames that killed about 20 people. I mean, we just had so many attacks, and yet we are by far the most open and the freest country for Islam in Europe. Take a look at when ISIS was formed in 2014. 2,000 British Muslims left and joined ISIS, including Jihadi John, the guy that did the slit the throats of those fellows in the orange jumper suits. He is from London. He is from St. John's Wood. He grew up in London, in British schools, wearing uniforms. He is a Londoner, and yet there he was slitting the throats and doing the Bismillah and then reciting chapter 47, verse 4 of the Quran as he slit their throats. Did it in Arabic, though he's English speaking. The second Jihadi John, after the Americans killed the first Jihadi John, the second one was Siddhartha Das. He is from Eastern London. I have 2 friends who blew themselves up in Tel Aviv and killed 3 Israeli guards there at Mike's Bar in 2003. These are men I know. We used to engage with them weekly, and then they disappeared and blew themselves up. So this is something that is unique, and it's fascinating. I spent 25 years trying to wake up the British public and the government and saying, do you realize what you have on your hand? Are you realizing you're not engaging with this level? You are just placating them, acquiescing to them, subverting yourself to them, and look how they're responding. They see that as a weakness, and they're taking over your country. I got fed up. Finally, by 2017, I said, I've had enough. I wanted to get this message all over the world. And that's when I started working in the historical critique. So we can talk about that later on.
Let's get to that. Let's get to the basics of Islam. Every religion is based on certain tenets, certain foundational principles upon which the entire structure of their religious building stands. Let's talk about Islam. What are the structures on which they build their religion, their theology, the aggressive nature of what they're doing?
Well, now that's 2 different questions there. Let's talk about the theological, and then of course how they do it. So let's split those 2 up. Theologically speaking, if you want to see what Islam is, you need to go and look at the historical antecedents of how Islam began. And to do that, you need to look at the origins, which is the whole thing that I'm working on. That's my whole area of expertise. When you look at the origins of Islam, it was started though it was not called Islam, nor was the person who started called a Muslim. His name was Abdul Malik, who ruled from 685 to 705 in Damascus. He was the caliph of the Umayyad Caliphate, the strongest, the greatest of all the caliphs. He is the one that built the Dome of the Rock that you see in Jerusalem. And to understand what he was about, he was a Christian, but he was an anti-Trinitarian Christian. So he did not believe in Jesus as God, nor in the Trinity, and he didn't believe that Jesus was the Son of God. Those are the 3 things that he was attacking. As many anti-Trinitarians, like the Jehovah's Witnesses today, or the Arianists in the 4th century. This has been a cancer that has traveled with us in the Christian church since Arian was the one that really shot and confronted the divinity of Jesus. Abdul Malik was very much of the same ilk. And that's why when you look at the Dome of the Rock, when you look at that building, look at the inner ambulatories, the only original part of that building, and look at the inscriptions that are written in Arabic on those inscriptions. Say not 3, for God is one, and he has no son. Who's that attacking? Right. Say not 3 is attacking the Trinity. God is one. That's attacking Jesus as God. The idea that we believe in a duality. And there, God has no son. Well, that's attacking John 3:16. So that's an attack against Jesus and the Trinity. And then the next inscription says, "For neither does God beget, nor is he begotten." That's straight. That's again against the divinity of Jesus and his sonship. And then it says, "La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah." There is only one God but God. And the praised one, that's what Muhammad means. It's a title in Arabic. The praised one is a messenger of God, is nothing more than the messenger of God. So if you string all these inscriptions together, this is an attack against Jesus, an attack against his divinity, attack against the Trinity, attack against his sonship, that God is one, and that this Jesus, the praised one, the Muhammad, because Muhammad, that name is found all through the 7th century. It can be traced all the way back to the 1400 BC. It's a well-known title in Arabic and in Hebrew, same word in Hebrew that you have in Arabic. That praised one is nothing more than a messenger. So this Jesus is not God. He is not divine. He is not part of the Trinity. He is not the Son of God. He's nothing more than a messenger. So there is the beginning of it right there, Jake. Now, was he a Muslim? No. That word did not take on form until about 730, about well into the 8th century. And we know this because of John of Damascus. We can see how it traced up, and we can also see the inscriptions. So Islam really began as an attack against Jesus. So that's why it is, if you look at almost the first thing that Muslims tell you, the first thing they say when they get into a discussion, they attack Jesus' divinity, do they not? They attack the Trinity, do they not? They attack the person of Jesus Christ. Woo, there go the balloons again. They attack everything that is at the very forefront of Christianity, and then they attack the crucifixion and the resurrection. So Islam was created to attack our Lord Jesus Christ and to attack the death and resurrection on the cross. That's the theological underpinning, and you can see Islam grew out of those underpinnings. Now, what about how it was begun? Well, it was not just a theological attack, it was also a political attack. Because the Umayyads, the only threat they had, because they'd already destroyed, well, it wasn't the Umayyads that destroyed, it was the Byzantines that destroyed the Persians, the Sassanians, the only other great superpower of the day. It was Heraclius that did that in 622. Isn't that an interesting date? 622. That's the year. That's the year of Islam. There was no Islam back then. Heraclius was a Byzantine, but then he went off to the west and did not worry about what was happening there in that part of the world.
I don't know about you, but I'm constantly searching the internet, YouTube, and Rumble for something to watch that will give me news and events. But I really want more than that. I want to know what it all means. I want to know what's going on behind the scenes, and I'm looking for something that'll tell me how all of this relates to the times and the unfolding of Bible prophecy. I can find news, I can find preaching, but finding someone who can put it all together has been frustrating. But a few weeks ago, I stumbled across the Baker Report with Dr. Jake Baker. He has Glenn Beck passion, the insight of a Rusher Tucker, and a prophetic understanding like a Jonathan Cahn. Such a refreshing find. His program comes out every Friday afternoon, but the archives are available anytime at rumble.com. Then search for his channel, The Baker Report. That channel again is The Baker Report. It is amazing.
One of the most common comments we hear is, "I don't feel bad. I just don't feel good anymore." Unfortunately, that's a theme we hear from people in their 40s, 50s, and many seniors. But sadly, it's also coming from people in their 20s and 30s. With all the preservatives, chemicals, and parasites in our food, water, and air, the "I just don't feel good anymore" syndrome is hitting earlier than ever before. Fortunately, you don't have to accept that reality. At Sanus One, we've developed a one-of-a-kind, nano-infused, bio-sized formula that attacks disease, helps flush toxins and heavy metals from your system, and declares war on the ultimate immune system destroyer, parasites, that feed on your organs, and can destroy your heart, lungs, liver, even your brain. You really can feel good again with the Sanus One Wellness and Bio-Cleanse Mega Pack. Visit us at sanus1.com. That's sanus1.com.
So, you need a simple video to tell people about your business, educational institution, or nonprofit you run. But, You talked to one of those production houses, and they said it was going to cost way more than you ever imagined. Well, like many of you, we're independent business people and we understand what it takes to run a business or raise funds for a charitable organization, and we're here to help. Whether it's an effective email campaign, a video, short or long, or just a commercial for radio or television, we can help. Need a ghostwriter or help with a webinar? Yep, we can help with that too. Need copy for a website? Article for publication or adfomercial? We've got you covered. If you need it, we can help, and we'll keep your budget in mind as well. So visit our website at elitepowerpros.com. That's elitepowerpros.com, and relax, help is on the way.
And we are back with page 3 of the Baker Report. There are some out there who have criticized me for being the prophet of doom. And to some, that may well be the case. But for those of us living under the shadow of the Almighty's protection, none of this is scary or even dark or dismal. We know that all these things must come to pass if we're to begin the millennial age of the Messiah. There is no birth without the birth pangs. The seasons, folks, have changed, and this is that final change of the final season. There will be no more of the seasons of Ecclesiastes 3. But in that, folks, we should be rejoicing. 27 of the 28 seasons have all passed. We are now in the last and most spectacular of all of those seasons. This is the time when the world will attack, and we, as the people of Yahweh, are fully unshackled. We've been taken off the leash and can now rain down light on a sin-darkened world with absolutely glorious shock and awe. This is the time of the revival of the remnant. This is the time when the Spirit of God is going to move in ways that have never been seen before, bringing power and, if you will, glorious shock and awe to this battle. Men like today's guest, J. Smith, Dr. J. Smith, are bringing us a new and powerful weapon of mass destruction, destroying with the light of the truth and the light of the gospel the darkness that's all around us. So don't be surprised or feel fearful of the weapons that evil men bring against us. This has got to come. It must come. And understand that while this is a spiritual battle, there will be certain realities in the physical world. So I want to share a passage with you that's one of those mysteries, one of those hidden gems tucked away for us and for these times. It's found in Revelation chapter 6, and it tells about the timing of the end times and the events that prophecy tells us will take place before the Messiah returns to set up his millennial kingdom. Revelation chapter 6, beginning at verse 7 and 7, says, "And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, 'Come and see.' And I beheld, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death. And hell followed with him. And power was given unto him unto the fourth part of the earth to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God, and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants, also their brethren, that should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled." So there's a number already determined by heaven, by eternity, that should be killed for their faith and for their testimony, which is the testimony of Yeshua, their Messiah. Scripture tells us that the door or gateway to the Father is through the atoning work of the Son. That has been the message of prophecy from Genesis until now. For Scripture tells us in Revelation 19, verse 10, and I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said to me, see, thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and thy brethren that have the testimony of Yeshua. Worship Yahweh, for the testimony of Yeshua is the spirit of prophecy. All prophecy, folks, from the beginning has been pointing to this moment in time, to this place where we are in history. We see from the gospel from Genesis 1 through Revelation 22:21. And how, you may ask, is the gospel in Genesis 1? Genesis 1 speaks of the creation. And Scripture tells us that God made the heavens and the earth, and the agent of that change or creation was, in fact, Yeshua. Here's what we read in John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And the same was in the beginning with God. And all things were made by him. By whom? Yeshua. And without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of man. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not the light, but was sent to bear witness of the light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. Friends, this is the spirit of prophecy, and we can see it from Genesis 1 on. We see the redemptive nature of Yahweh. Yeshua, the Creator, knowing that it would cost him everything, still chose to be the agent of creation of all things, including mankind, because without him was not anything made that was made. If then, knowing what it would cost him, he still created this world, the plants and the animals, and then with his own hands formed us from the dust of the ground, and did something then unique in all of time and history. He made us by breathing into us himself the breath of life. We are not animals in the food chain. We are not mammalia as scientists would have us believe. We are humankind, unique in all of creation. Now, knowing that, knowing what it would cost him, he still chose to create us. And knowing you personally before the worlds were even sitting on their axis, before the worlds were framed, and knowing the cost he would pay to redeem you and me, we know now in this final age, this final season, that if he went to that much trouble, knowing what it would cost him, knowing that, do you believe that he would ever forsake us or abandon us, even in this age? But he is here to help us survive, thrive, and overcome. We must live in the power of this end-time remnant revival. But if you want to live in that revival power, that is even now flowing into the remnant of Yahweh, there's a qualification. First, obviously, is salvation. But the second is walking in harmony with Yahweh. The closer the relationship is, the more power that flows into your life. The Epistle of John tells us, here is how you know if you love God. You keep his commandments, and they're not grievous to you. Why aren't they grievous? Because your heart has been changed. That is the power source. No, you cannot work your way into heaven, but neither can you expect an uninterrupted flow of Yahweh's power into your life for these last days without that closeness of relationship with the Father through the Son. This is the time to live in expectancy. We've had the season of the faith movement that taught us to pray for the things we need. Now's the time to move on to the perfection of our faith. No longer praying for the soulish things, but praying for the things of the Spirit and power, that we might be mighty warriors, putting on the full armor of God, the helmet of salvation, the shield of faith, the sword of the Spirit, that we might bring glorious, truly glorious shock and awe to a sin-sick and dying world, that through us, the battle of light is chasing the spirit of darkness. There is a glorious time coming, but this is already a glorious time to be alive. This is the greatest adventure in all of human history. This is the time of the end, a time the prophets dreamed of. And we, the people of Yahweh, are the instruments of his shock and awe, bringing light to this darkened world. And lo, he is with you always, even unto the end of the age. So dip your sword in the blood of Calvary, drink deep of the river of living water, and let us go forward. Let us go forward into this great and marvelous battle under the banner of our Savior, Creator, Priest, and King, Yeshua, our Messiah. Until next time, for the Baker Report, I'm Jake Baker. Good day. Take care. Lord bless.